Hi there, Templar Thompson of the Sacred Order of the Loop here. I've been using Live since version 1, and I've learned quite a few tips and tricks and amazing things you can do with this incredibly versatile program in all those years. So I thought that I would share them with you. I've used it for just about every application you can think of, making music, both solo electronic and band-based, jamming with friends, musical arrangement, tracking and mixing, remix work, as a virtual instrument host while playing live with the band, DJing, as an audio plugin host for live audio, playback for theater and corporate work, playback for live band performance, a little bit of composing for video, although I don't feel that it's the best option for that. Anyway, I'm going to assume that you don't know what I'm talking about until we get to later lessons, so I apologize in advance if I tell you something you already know. I'll try not to be too redundant. I always throw a little extra credit at the end of the lesson with some tips or tricks that I've found handy, though, and I'll let you know at the beginning of the video when that starts if you want to skip ahead. If at any point you're not hearing audio receiving MIDI in your copy of Live, jump to the extra credit for this lesson. I go through everything in the preferences page. I'm using Ableton Live Suite version 10. If you're using an earlier version or a lower tier, like Intro or Live Lite or Standard, it may look a bit different and lack some of the new functionality, but most of the operation remains the same. If you're not sure which version you're using, just go to Help, About Live on a PC, or Live and the About Live on Mac. Ableton Live is a DAW, or digital audio workstation, but it's also a lot more. Just want to show you around a little bit. First, we'll go to the arrangement view. You can click up here or hit the tab button on your keyboard. So this is the arrangement view. It might look familiar to anybody that's ever used any DAW ever. If you press spacebar or click the play at the top, the playhead here will start scrolling from left to right. And that's your timeline. This is everything happening musically as it happens. And wherever this is, that's what you're hearing at that particular moment. Your channels and groups are laid out from top to bottom, with auxiliary returns at the bottom and master at the very bottom. We'll dive in a bit deeper later on, but for the time being, we can press stop or hit the stop key to stop that playback. If you hit it again, it goes back to the very beginning. So we're going to go back to the session view by hitting tab or hitting the session view button up here in the top right-hand corner. In some ways, the session view operates similarly to the arrangement view, except vertically instead of horizontally. Your channels stretch from left to right, with auxiliary returns on the far right and the master at the rightmost. Where it gets interesting is that music does not need to go from top to bottom chronologically. You may want to organize it that way a bit to keep things kind of logical, but it's up to you. It's really very sort of free form, and it's made to be experimental and made to allow you to come up with a musical idea really quickly. The next thing that you really need to understand is the idea of a clip. You can double click on a MIDI channel to create one, or audio you can record it in or import it in. It's basically a visual representation of a chunk of audio or MIDI. It could be as short as a single drum hit or note, or as long as a full song or session. It can be a loop. It can play through just one time. It can be a combination of both. Clips are also used in arrangement view and are completely interchangeable between session and arrangement view. I can take this clip I just created, drag it over to arrangement view. You can see it right there. That's where I'm inserting it. And boom, there it is. There's the same clip that I just created. You can also, if it's a loop, stretch it out over time and it'll just keep on looping. You can see each one of those little marks is the cycle. I can drag it between different tracks. Because it's MIDI, the one that I just created, if I put it on audio, it actually just changed that audio track to a MIDI track. But they're super easy to work with. You can move them around, you can adjust them, you can cut them and slice them, you can do whatever you can think of. This is just a brand new set, and it just gives you 2 MIDI channels, 2 audio channels. But you can add them to your heart's content. If you're in the light version, there's a limit of, I think, 16. Audio channels will take most audio files and convert them automatically if necessary. For example, MP3s. MIDI, if you're not familiar with it, is a representation of musical thoughts and expressions. It can be a note, C-2 to G8 on the keyboard, or a control change, or CC for short. It can be used to control just about anything in live, but we'll get to that a bit later. Let's take a quick look at the different areas of the session view. In the top left, you've got your tempo control. Tempo is the underlying heartbeat of the music. We work in beats per minute, or BPM for short. Right here is your current BPM. The default is 120, but it can be anywhere from 20 to 999. You can type something in, or you can drag it, or you can use the up-down keys on your keyboard to adjust it in small steps. If you double-click on it, like anything else, it'll just go back to the default, which is 120. Just to the right of that, you have the meter, which is 4/4 in this case. This is the most common meter in Western popular music. In the most simple terms, it defines how many beats make up a bar of music. You can think of it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All it is a musical way of describing time. In the middle of the top, we have the transport area. You have your current location in time, play button, stop button, and record button. You'll notice that the time isn't listed in minutes and seconds, like you might be used to, but rather bars, beats, and 16th notes. This is because time is very elastic in live. So think of it more as your location in the music versus your location in time. In the top right, you have some status signals and assignment buttons. The number with a percentage is your CPU usage. If this exceeds 100%, it's not pretty. You get audio errors and cutouts. It means your computer just can't keep up with making all of the sounds happen as quickly as you want them to. If you get to the point where it's over 100%, there's a few different tactics you can use to kind of tame that. To the right of that is a D, which is a similar situation, except it's your hard drive. So if that's lighting up, it means you can't pull the information off your hard drive quickly enough. Kind of thing will happen if you're playing too many audio files at the same time. Unless you're using this to mix, it's probably not going to be a problem for most people. Again, there's other ways that you can deal with that if it comes up. To the right of that is the MIDI in and out indicators. That one up at the top means I'm receiving MIDI into Ableton from something external. The one below it will light up if Ableton's sending MIDI to something. It could be sync. It could be sending to an external actual physical keyboard that's making sounds that you're routing back into Ableton or elsewhere. They're both really useful for troubleshooting if for some reason you're not getting MIDI in or out. On the left side of the screen is the browser. You can use this to add audio files, MIDI files, instruments, effects, and grooves. It's all kind of organized over here. This window is scalable. So, if it's in the way, you can tuck it back some, or if you're really trying to find something, you can spread it out. You can also click on this little arrow up here to hide it if it's just kind of in the way, or bring it back. Don't worry, it's not gone forever. On the bottom left, you have the info view. This little guy can be incredibly useful. It's basically contextual to anything you're pointing at on the screen. So if you ever have any questions about what a button does or a knob or whatever, it'll tell you what it does. And it's gotten me out of a lot of jams if I'm just, oh, hey, what's that new thing they just added in this version? It'll tell you. I like to keep it around, but just like the browser, you can also hide it if you feel like it's in the way, or bring it back. The other thing that's nice is it'll also give you shortcuts like this right here. At the bottom, you have the clip view window, which is where you'll do a lot of your work and fine tuning. This is where the piano roll is for writing and editing MIDI. It's scalable as well, so if I want to make it a little bit bigger, you can see here's my piano roll for a MIDI clip right here. But just be aware that this is where a lot of the action happens. I'm just going to load an instrument right now to a new track. So you can see right now I have that track selected and the instrument comes up that's on there. And if there's any effects or what have you, they'd all fall in line over here after it. So if I were to just add a filter, you'll see they pop up kind of in a row. There's also a small visual representation down here that you can use to scroll. Say we start throwing too many effects on here. You just scroll down. You just use this right here to scroll amongst what you have. If you want to rearrange them, you can grab them at the top and shift the order that they come. It's basically your signal chain. So if I have both a clip and a device on the same thing, you can double click on the clip to focus it, or the top of the channel to go back to the device, or just shift tab. We'll switch back and forth. Below the clip view, there's a status bar down here that will let you know if something is wrong or if Ableton is working on something. If you usually use a certain audio interface and it's not there, and you need to reconfigure your audio, this will be yellow, and you can just click on it, it'll take you right to that page. Or if samples are missing, it'll be red. You can click on it and it'll take you to the sample finder. It's kind of just where your worry messages sort of come up. Now I'm just going to give you a quick demo of throwing together a few ideas. Just something really, really simple, but so, you know, right here I have a loop, an audio loop that I prepared from a different session. So you can hear that playing. I feel like I want to add in some drums to that though, so I'm going to drag in a drum rack as well. So I got this drum rack here. A few different sounds on it. I'm just going to throw in a real quick loop for this to sync up to. So start that clip playing. All right, so we got a nice little groove going on right now. I still got this synthesizer thing over here, so I'm gonna enable it and doesn't sound very interesting though. Let's try playing around with the settings a little bit. can pretty quickly record in a clip of something too. Pretty sloppy though. Just quantize that a little bit. So let's add some interesting effects here. Just throw what should we do? Maybe a little delay of some sort, maybe? Let's throw a filter delay in here. So, you know, you can see it's pretty easy to throw ideas together. So the whole thing with this is we're looking at loops here. So I can build a scene. If I trigger this scene, it just goes back to these two loops that are playing. If I trigger this scene, it's just this clip right here. I can start this clip up now. And the thing that's great about Ableton is everything will just sync up. These numbers right here, that represents how many beats a loop is, the one that's currently playing. That represents how many times it's played through. And that pie chart right there shows you how much time has passed since the beginning of the loop. You can see these are half as long as this one is. By just hitting spacebar, it stops everything. But if I hit spacebar again, it starts back at the very very beginning. One important thing to know about is the stop all button, which is right here, which basically sets all of your loops back to 0. So now let's talk about that arrangement window again. If we hit tab, here's our arrangement. Nothing exciting or interesting going on here. You can see nothing's recorded. Well, if we put it into record mode, we can throw down an idea real quickly. So say that's my basic sketch for a song. All the things that I just did are recorded in the arrangement view now. So right now, if I play, it's still doing whatever's going on in the session view. So there's a button here called back to arrangement. It's the same up here. You hit that, and now arrangement view is playing instead of the other view, instead of session view. So you can see all the clips are stopped. If I stop this and start it at the beginning, nothing's playing here. But if we go to the arrangement view, you can see I've got my clips here. And now it plays back everything that we just did. The very top part right here, if you click on it and hold the click, if you press down, it'll zoom in, or up, it'll zoom out. It can be really handy for doing, fine edits. So this is all here. Now, say I just want to make a quick edit here. I hit Control E. That just made this into 2 separate clips. So now I can just drag that. So pretty sloppy right there, but there's other things you can also use. So this right here is your volume envelope. So this could be kind of cool. We can do a little fade out maybe. Let's see. So anyways, that's a very, very, very basics of throwing together some ideas. There's a lot more to get into because I barely touched on anything, but I just wanted to try to translate some of the basic ideas here. You can't think of this just like a DAW because it doesn't really function the same way. You can see at the top, just like in the other screen, it's not minutes and seconds. It's beats and bars. You've got your timeline down here at the bottom, which is handy, but another thing that's important to know is we can change the tempo at any time. So if I go up here to the tempo, start turning it down some. A totally different song now. And that's the thing that's great is you can just make those changes on the fly. You can do that live if you're using this as a live performance tool. You can program it in to do it when you launch a scene, whatever you can think of. That's the basics of what you have going on in Ableton. Hopefully you can navigate around a little bit now. Play around with it. The best thing you can do in this program is experiment and try different things. See what happens because it will reward you for it. It's a really fun program. Just give it some time. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more information, delving a little bit deeper into the various aspects of it, please check out my other videos. That's it for today, and stick around for extra credit.